Good day to you, and welcome to Cujo Sound. Bjørn Jacobsen speaking here, and this is Game Audio Talk, where I talk about a specific game and some of its audio design features. And in this video, it's time for the brand new game Vampyr, or Vampyr, by DontNod Entertainment. Let's talk about the audio of the game, how it's done, how it's implemented, and trying to decipher the way it is. And in this specific video, I'll go a little deeper into some of the ambient soundscapes that are implemented as a mix of 2D, 3D, and fully spread sounds, which is different from the more general video I just released on Vampyr the other day. A quick heads up here, Game Audio Talk is all about sound in games, how I as a sound designer hear it, and how I think it's done. It's not a review of the game, and I'm not trying to bash the game in any way. I'm only interested in the sound design and what we can learn from playing this specific game. This video contains some minor spoilers, so consider yourself warned now. Vampyr is an odd mix of Vampire the Masquerade and Murdered Soul Suspect. That's odd in a good way, and it seems to borrow only the newer graphics and control from the newer of the two, which is good. IMHO. Ready for Vampyr? Let's get to it. Vampyr is the latest from Life is Strange developer DontNod Entertainment in France, and it's been anticipated for quite some time, and I've really enjoyed playing this lately. The game has some nice ambient soundscapes that I'll be talking about here. This is the beginning of the game, so no reason to skip ahead if you're worried about spoilers, as nothing has really happened yet. Here we have a nice rain soundscape, in which we can walk around and the rain will constantly be around us. This is a so-called 2D sound, and is placed on top of everything and does not move spatially with the movement of the player. Technically, a 2D sound does not have to be implemented as a 2D player, or named 2D at all, because it can also be a 3D emitter with its so-called spread set to maximum, when within a given radius from the emitter.
Very streets of London become a mausoleum.
When within this given radius, it will spread out to all speakers of your setup and be less controlled by physical movement and spatialization from the game. Having a 2D or fully spread sound only for your ambience is not a bad thing, and can definitely do the trick most of the time. But building your ambience from actual 3D emitters, or even better, combining a 2D sound with 3D sweeteners and emitters from all around the level can really make your ambience come to life. Here we are, walking in the rain, without getting visually wet for some reason, and we have the 2D or fully spread overall rain sound playing in the background. But notice right here, to our right, there's a small deviation from this loop as we walk past it. This is a so-called sweetener. It's placed right around here. You can tell because if we rotate the camera like this, the sound is panning in the speakers, which is as intended with a 3D sound emitter. This gives us the feeling that the environment is being more alive and more realistic than if we had just had the 2D background sound playing alone. What is really smart about this specific sweetener is that when we walk close to its actual location, the sound seems to spread out into our remaining available speakers. This eliminates the sound's ability to spatially pan around when the listener is being moved. This is smart because in this way you avoid super fast and excessive panning when walking past an emitter like this. Or should the camera rotate too fast, or if you run too fast, anything like that. So to summarize this gives us an overall 2D soundscape playing and a 3D rain sweetener placed here, with something like a 10-meter max attenuation, or 525 Unreal units, since this game is made in Unreal. But instead of having this as a 3D sound all the way, they have added a spread curve, which when close to the emitter is set to somewhere between 50 or 100. In this case, most likely 100 when you're really close to it. This game is made in Wise, or at least the sound is, so let's take a look at how this is done in Wise. We have a sound with an attenuation curve. We have set the max distance we want and the volume. And the high pass and the spread curves have been set as desired. In this case, the spread curve would look something like this. If we go further into this level, we will get to this harbor area where there is still a 2D soundscape playing, but here there's a lot of these sweeteners playing, and not just the single one from before. Listen as we move closer to these boats. Also listen as we get closer to these barrels. Or this van here. These sweeteners seem to rotate spatially regardless of how close we are to them. This can be for two reasons. Either because the emitter is located on the physical barrel or the van, and it's just far enough into the barrel or the van for the player to not get fully close to them and therefore not be affected by its spatialization and the spread of the curve. Or it is a deliberate choice from the developer so that in these specific situations, making it more easy to pan around with these specific sounds, which also makes them different from the more generic hard raindrops that we heard before. So a sound located here, as an example, normally has a radius from where it within plays, like this. Sometimes, the volume is set to be constant when within the first couple of meters. This is what some call the min dist, or minimum distance. We also adjust the spread to have a value of 100 in this area, but fade to 0 when beyond this point here. This is what causes the sound not to pan when we are closer than this to the emitter. So when we have a big area like this, we have an overall 2D sound playing, but have various sweeteners placed around the level like this. This spreads the sound locations out across the level, making it feel like you're actually walking through the soundscape and not just listening to a backdrop of sounds, like if the 2D sound had been there alone. Another thing about the ambient soundscapes here, which is always interesting in games, is how the transitions work and how the doors trigger them. Like in this situation, we are at a hideout. But once we open this door, the outside ambience doesn't play right away, it fades in. This is either triggered by the door allowing the sound to play. This can be done by either having the sound of the ambience not play at all and then have an event trigger it. Or we can have an RTPC on top of the ambient soundscape hierarchy, like this. We could call it RTPC occlusion or RTPC ambience allowance, and then have the door control it. Somehow check that we are inside the room that does not allow ambience to play, and then set this value to respectively either 0 or 1 when the door is open or closed, which means that we now have a curve like this, which will then mute the sound of the ambience whenever the door is either open or closed. It can also be done with so-called states. States have this really nice behavior that you can have a lot of them, and they are very easy to control. If each room or area in the game could have its own state and a state controller that sets it whenever you enter a specific room, then you can crossfade between them. Like when we enter this hideout, we could set a state that is called state hideout, which then mutes all other ambient sounds. This can be done in a lot of ways, but these are some of the ways that it could be done. They probably did it differently, and I don't know how they did it, and will never know, as I didn't work on this specific game, but it's still interesting to try and decipher. Now, one thing that leads me to believe that states is what was being used for these transition, or at least a very controlled RTPC or a long fade-in of the event, is that in this area of the game, you can move close to the door here, and hear the outside ambience play as we walk through it. It's not obvious when we're walking from the inside to the outside, but as we go back inside to this bar again, notice how the outside rain ambient sound is faded out over time, and not over the distance that we walked into this room. This could mean that a state is being used to control the transition, with a 2 to 3 second transition time on the state, set like this in blocks.
didn't deserve this.
There's gotta be something can be done.
And that is
to
how
help
some of the interesting audio features and the ambience of Vampyr works. This isn't very far into the game, so I can't actually say if the game is really any good yet, or if there will be more great audio features that will pop up later in the game. But if they do, I will certainly document it right here on Cujo Sound's YouTube channel for you. Speaking of this YouTube channel, thank you for watching. If you haven't already done so, why not subscribe to the channel and hit the like button for more videos on game audio, game development, and sound design. If you really like this content here, you should consider signing up on patreon.com/Cujo Sound. On patreon.com/Cujo Sound, you can support me and the time I spent creating this content. I would really appreciate it. And with Patreon, you can support me and this channel for as little as $1 a month, and you, at the same time, get access to a dedicated Discord channel with game audio talk only, advice and mentoring from me, and you can always ask questions and receive help for any of your projects. I hope you enjoyed this video, and we'll be back very soon. Cujo Sound signing out. Hope to see you again next time.